All right, back to the phones here on a special Friday on Halftime. Aaron Torres standing by from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast and Aaron Torres Media. AT, we are coming, it's bubble talk, of course, and Arkansas is firmly, squarely on the bubble. Looks to me like maybe 10 SEC teams you could say would be comfortably in, and then about, 5 teams potentially on a bubble. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks.
It is. Arkansas is squarely in that mix. I mean, listen, I know all the conversations you guys have been having this week, so, I don't want to overstate or understate anything. I think the only positive, if you will, Arkansas is in all these games against these elite teams. You would love to have another signature win or two and feel better. I just think the positive is, unlike in Oklahoma, unlike a Georgia, I think Arkansas is playing well. I don't necessarily know that they have the win-loss total over the last 5 games to show it, but I also think everybody knew that this was going to be a tough, 4-game stretch if you go back to the Alabama game. And so now, the schedule gets about as easy as it can in the SEC. You got to take advantage. And so you guys know that. Everybody listening knows that. I'm not breaking any news here, but you've been close against the Auburns, the Alabamas, the A&Ms. Now you got to finish against the South Carolinas, beat Texas for a second time, things like that.
Hey, Aaron, there's a couple top 25, top 10 matchups this weekend. If you look at Tennessee going to A&M, which one of those teams are you buying stock in right now? Do you believe in either one of those teams?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't, just because they're both kind of the same team. They're just so limited offensively. I'll say this. I think Texas A&M, as Arkansas fans unfortunately found out last week, they've kind of perfected the winning ugly thing. And I think they know who they are. As weird as it sounds with Tennessee, we're 25 games into the season. I think Tennessee, there's still games where they can put up 80, where they can have a great offensive performance. They just don't really do it consistently. And so with A&M, you could talk about how ugly they play, whatever, but they know who they are. And like I said, I think they're actually pretty good at it. So I would say probably in the bigger picture, I appreciate, I think that Texas A&M, I wouldn't say is like built for a run better, but again, I think they just kind of know who they are and all that.
What do you make of Auburn? What do you make of Auburn's win over Arkansas? Because here's what I see from Auburn. They are winning games in the 50s, the 60s, the 80s, the 90s. They're winning games at every level. They're winning games of every style right now. We obviously know they're dangerous. They've only lost twice. But they can win games in many different ways. You got to be able to do that to go deep.
It's a great point, Phil. That's something, that's an old Jim Calhounism. So I don't know if you grew up on UConn basketball quite like I did, but that was Jim Calhoun's thing, is you got to build a team to have success playing all sorts of different ways, and especially late this kind of year. And so that is probably, by the way, why I think I'll be real, guys. I know that it wasn't pretty against Arkansas the other day. I think I don't be a little bit shocked at this point if Auburn doesn't win, and assuming there's no major injuries, things like that, because they can win so many ways. They have so many guys that can beat you. They put up 94 at Coleman Coliseum the other day, and then they win a game in the 50s, 60s the other game against Arkansas. And so, I think you have to be able to do that. And I just think, frankly, there aren't a lot of teams that can. Like, we're, again, late February. I don't know if Alabama can win a game in the 50s. I mean, I guess in theory they can, but can they get enough stops defensively, et cetera? And so I think, you look at different teams, different styles, whatever, but I think that is probably, besides just having really good players and lots of them, I think that's probably what makes Auburn so dangerous, is to your point, Phil, they can win in so many different ways.
Hey, Aaron, another big one that I'm kind of looking forward to, Iowa State and Houston, another top 10 matchup. Which one of those teams do you like to make a deep run in the tournament?
I certainly think both are capable. And this is going to sound counterintuitive because I just did this big spiel about how you got to be able to win multiple ways. But Houston is so good defensively. And I think they're just so battle-tested from being in the Big 12. I'll say this, and I think I've talked about this on my show at various points. I don't know if I've ever brought it up with you guys, but I think we're kind of underrating what, Houston was just so dominant in the AAC for so many years. and you kind of sat there and said, okay, well, how's it going to translate when they get to the Big 12? And, I mean, they won the Big 12 regular season title last year, and they're really kind of trending towards not only winning it this year, but winning it by multiple games. They only play Arizona once, I believe. They have the head-to-head win. They have split with Texas Tech, but Texas Tech now is a few games back. They win this game, they probably win the league by multiple games in the regular season this after doing it last year. And so I just think somehow, some way, I know it's not a huge basketball brand, but it's like what that team and that program has done in the step up to the Big 12, I think we should probably be giving them a little bit more credit because it's kind of incredible what they've done over the last 2 years. Well, you know, really over the last 7-8 years, but especially the last 2 years with the transition of the Big 12.
Pretty amazing to see. Now, Arkansas plays Mizzou tomorrow night. It's been pretty amazing to see Mizzou go from 0-16 to squarely in the tournament and actually battling for seeding in the top 16 within one calendar year, and not just for it to all be a bunch of transfers. They've got 5 players returning from last year's team. It's one of the best turnaround stories we've ever seen in college basketball, and hey, right now, outside of Auburn, there might not be another team playing any better in the SEC than the Missouri Tigers.
It is pretty incredible. You know, I'll say is, you know, Dennis Gates, I think, made 2 NCAA tournaments at Cleveland State. He certainly made 1. I don't know if he made 2. And in year 1, took Missouri to the tournament. And so I always kind of viewed last year as kind of more of the outlier year than the first year when he made the NCAA tournament in year 1. I think they went to the round of 32. But, yeah, I didn't think in this SEC specifically, I thought they'd be improved. But what does improved from, as you said, Phil, 0-16 look like? I mean, are we talking about 500? Are we talking, you know, by the way, if you went from 0-16, 0-18, whatever it was, to 9-9, 8-8, and 500, that's an incredible turnaround. Right now, I think they're 9-4. I think what's kind of crazy, too, is in the out-of-conference, their only 2 losses are at Memphis, which we now know is a good loss, and by the way, they led that game at halftime, and a neutral court game against Illinois when Illinois was at full strength, which is a quote-unquote good loss as well. So, I mean, not only have they not really lost games, I mean, all their games are the NCAA tournament caliber teams. They beat Kansas in the non-con. I'm with you, Phil, is, you know, I'll say this about that program. They don't do, like, a lot of external media, you know, like a guy like Bruce Pearl. He'll do pretty much any interview you want. Dennis Gates really isn't built that way. He's kind of just focused on his team and the day-to-day. And so I just don't think because he doesn't do a lot of extra media, he's not really out there like that, I just don't think they probably get the credit they deserve, because I know I've said it 2 or 3 times to back up your point, Phil, but it really is kind of a pretty incredible story that probably not enough people across the sport and even across the SEC are talking about.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your #1 source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your #1 sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.